Hello, and welcome to episode 28 of the Foam News Collective podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm KT. I'm here with Vile, and we have a really special guest, but before I introduce him, I actually have to welcome back our very own Grimm's Nerf Works back to the podcast after a few episodes off. Welcome back, Grimm.
Hello.
It's great to have
be
you back here with us. Today is Thursday, the 22nd of February. We're back recording on Thursday this week, but if anything happened, I guess we would have known by now if something was going to happen, because the episode will be out in like 12 hours. So I guess that almost doesn't apply today, but that's fine. Whatever. Welcome, our very special guest, Luke, Mr. Out of Darts himself. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be on the show finally.
This has been bouncing around for a little bit, getting you on here, and we had a wonderful time having Perry on at the end of last year. He was so great on the pod as well. But even then, we were talking about getting you on at some point. So
yeah, I've wanted to get on for a while. But the realities of running a business full time and two young kids definitely keeps me pretty busy.
Yes, very understandable. We were just talking before the show. The age gap between Luke's kids and the age gap between my kids is the same. So I was giving him a little bit of a look into the future. Well, so. I don't know. I say this to every guest, and I'm going to say it to you too. I'm fairly confident that everybody listening to this podcast knows who you are, but for the record, who are you? How did you get into this whole thing? What's your background?
Yeah. So my name's Luke. I run a web store called Out of Darts. I think we're probably the largest hobby retailer, and I've been doing that now for about 8 years. We actually just had our shop anniversary was 8 years in January, about a month and a half ago, which has absolutely blown my mind, to be honest. I started this hobby like everybody else did. I heard of people playing Humans vs. Zombies at the local campus in San Francisco. I went out to a game, and my first game was actually a what they call tac ops, I think, and it was a very dart-heavy game, and this is back in the days where you go buy 75 packs from Walmart or Target, and I show up with a buddy, and we each have 150 rounds. We've spent $40 on these darts, and I spent the whole day saying, I'm out of darts, I'm out of darts, I'm out of darts. Must have said it 100 times. But I was absolutely hooked just from the get-go there. The first day, I had just so much fun, and we were playing with, stock, I think it was a stock Strife, at the time was my very first build.
Oh my goodness,
and then,
yeah.
We found out people were modding them. We very quickly went into just, I did every mod that was out there. And, I had a cousin that made and modified and designed his own rubber band guns as a kid. And I always made some really cool designs. And at some point, I'm going to showcase them on the channel because it's a great origin story. But I always wanted to be part of that, and I never really had the opportunity. Additionally, I played paintball for about 20 years. I've played some airsoft too. And but I loved the lightheartedness and the fun that Nerf brings. And the games were just a blast. And then I started modding things, and I started coming up with ideas. My dad was an engineer. I've always kind of had a mind to tinker and make and do design things. No traditional, background in engineering or design work, but came up with a design called the Hurricane that turned into a 3D printed design.
Yeah,
which
that was kind of the thing that took off.
It blew
right?
up. Drac did a video at the time that, got a couple million hits, which at that time was absolutely bonkers. So it wasn't long. People were asking me, blowing up my inbox, asking me to purchase it. And one printer turned into 2, turned into 10, turned into 100, and now we have 7 employees, and it's what I would call a thriving business. It just keeps going, and I'm thrilled to be part of this community and get to do something so fun and with such amazing people.
We have a lot of people in this hobby who sort of like hand make small quantities of things and sell them individually. What was the point at which you decided, hold up, this could be like a business?
Well,
or was it a slow creep? Was there no did it just sort of happen?
So at first I was reluctant to sell anything at all. I had a perfectly fine career in filmmaking. I worked as a professional filmmaker for 12 or 13 years in the Bay Area doing
And it shows.
corporate and commercial, yeah. And so I had this terrible advantage of my first YouTube video, which I just casually shot in my backyard. You know, it looked like production quality. It looked like the YouTube channels of today, the professional YouTubers do today.
I was just looking at that. It's the blowgun strife, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so like I could do the video thing and it was just a fun outlet. But then when I started 3D designing just for fun, people started asking for that Hurricane. And I charged at the time what I thought was a lot of money for it because I basically figured out my hours, figured out what it took to print, the costs. I was very good at cost of goods sold because my previous job was, my actual job was bidding film jobs. So you deal with a lot of variables, a lot of people, a lot of expenses. And so I bid it basically to pay me as much or more than my day job. Because if I'm going to be tinkering in my garage, building people toys, I better not be distracting from my real career. And so that started off, but it was very much a trickle, but it was a trickle, a drip, and then it just, a torrent, and it turned into a waterfall of more than I could handle, had to bring on people to help. And then about 2 years or maybe a year and a half in of selling stuff, my wife and I loved this so much that I was willing to give up a career I'd spent basically since high school, middle school. I've been making movies since I was a little kid, and especially high school on. But I was like, I'm willing to give up my career to try make this a real business. And it thankfully, and my wife was very, very patient, and I'm like. And the biggest problem was we lived in California. The rents were absurd. They wanted for me to go rent like 1,000 square foot. They wanted like, what was it? Like $4 or $5 a month per square foot. So it's like $5,000 for a tiny little place. And I was like, this isn't possible.
Yeah.
So we made the decision to move up to Washington State where her family is. And ultimately my family came up, and it thankfully worked out, and I have to thank my wife for actually being so accommodating and just going along with it because
So the move was for the business.
It was to give this a real shot.
Wild.
And I had the luxury of my film business was about 30% travel, and so I could keep all the travel jobs with no change to my life. And I could fly back to the Bay Area. I couch surfed. I stayed with friends. I just was constantly flying back there. And the first year we lived up here, I flew 15 multi-leg flights or round trip flights. And I wanted to die. I thought it was terrible. It was ruining my life. And at that point, I was like, I don't care how little money this business makes. I will do this. I will work 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, whatever it takes to make this business happen. And so I did it. We quit filmmaking. We turned down all the clients. We shut down the website. We spooled everything down, and thankfully it all turned out really well. And here we are.
That's amazing. It's funny you talk about expensive cost of living in California. Three out of the four of us in this chat are former California residents.
Yeah.
I may not live there, but I do have a number of friends who have or do live there, and oh man, it's expensive.
Yeah. It's a lot. Well, I wanted to ask you something else about this sort of transformation from just getting into it, being passionate about it, but then turning it into a business. And I wonder, like, now that it's also your business and your livelihood, how has that changed the way you play and experience like Nerf events and actually play games? Because I know even just as a content creator, when it impacts, what am I running today at the game? Well, I need to spend some time with this thing, and I need to do this, and maybe that like affects like a game type that I pick, or maybe that and it sort of like changes the way you're thinking about it. I'm wondering what that's like from the perspective of someone running a business.
Yeah.
Where you have other people who are dependent on what you're doing, and it's all based around just like this thing you love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So at all the events now, I mean, I'm first and foremost kind of paying attention to other people. I like seeing what people are running. I like seeing the age range that's there and kind of keeping a keen eye on what the trends really are, because I'm one person and I have a team, but we're all extremely busy. So the hardest part for me is actually keeping up on the hobby in general. You'd think that I would know, like I guarantee the three of you all know more about what's the new stuff in the hobby. It takes a little bit to get to me.
Well, that's our business.
Yeah, that's kind of the given now.
No, and
I've noticed that I feel like I know about everything, but like I'm probably not going to see or play with any of these things anytime soon, because I don't have the time to do a lot of build. I mean, Vile's modding all the time, right? But like I don't have the time to do all the builds, and even if I could buy all the stuff, I don't have time to get out and play with it, because I got to produce the show and then I got to do my day job.
Yeah, absolutely. And similarly, when I'm out playing too, obviously we're thinking about things we want to run, testing out blasters. And we've shifted our content a bit, trying to do more to help new players and educate people rather than just doing reviews and gameplay videos, though we do like shooting those. To be completely honest, though, so often I get to a game and I'm supposed to run XYZ blaster, and, in reality, I just do whatever I want. So, because I'm kind of like I'm a bit of a big kid when it comes to the actual games. I get out on the field and I completely forget that I'm working, or, quote unquote working. Because I do consider it's like, as much as this still is my, my primary hobby, obviously it's a business. So when I go away for a 5-day trip, say to Maryland Mayhem coming up, or Ragnar Oktoberfest or End War or something, it's very much a work trip. So I'm trying to learn and educate. But in reality, I get out there and start playing HVZ or whatever game type, and I kind of get lost and forget that I'm supposed to be doing stuff.
I mean, that's good, at least for the psyche. That's what we want, right? Like, that's what we want.
I would say that is definitely the goal, at the very least, for most people with their job and their hobby being the same thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, okay. I want to turn to something specific that we get to ask you about. A couple episodes back, we covered the Juno, and going back to the Hurricane, it seemed one of the things I think that sort of made Out of Darts' image in the public eye and the hobby is high capacity, high rate of fire rival, and the Proton Pack and the Jupiter became the standard for that. Sort of after the Hurricane, and the Juno is an evolution of that, a remake of it, and I was really excited about the step that y'all took, open sourcing it, which I think is new for y'all, right?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I don't think there's been another product like that, and Vile. We're in this time. Here's this time travel thing again. You haven't seen the episode yet, but but anyone listening to this has. Vile's Community Crosshairs is a. Do you want to explain it, Vile?
Yeah, actually. So I believe it was Vander Nerf who made the mod. Used your proton wheels.
Photon wheels.
Sorry, photon wheels. Sorry, I said proton. Photon wheels. I actually have 2 sets of them, and I was looking to do these exact same mods, and it was awesome to see. But they did the Moto Strike and the Mastodon, and had modified some cages that were out there to accept the new wheels, and was getting these Mega Blasters to hit 130 FPS for the both of them, which is phenomenal to see. I'm super excited to see a very easy to get and acquire flywheel variant that can be used for both Rival and Mega, and it's. To me, I was like, absolutely, this is mine. I'm taking this one. I don't care. Because I'm a huge Mega fan. I love that big ammo type. I always think it's a really fun one to run if I can. So
it's kind of interesting how that works with the chambering size for them. It was one of the earliest things I remember figuring out when I was a kid back when I was much younger, when the Nemesis had came out. I had remembered I ran out of all my Rival rounds and I still wanted to use my Nemesis. So what I ended up doing is I turned it into like this big artillery thing. So I'd load like single load Mega rounds and then fire them, and they went really, really far and surprisingly accurate. And I turned into like a little, what I thought in my mind was a Nerf sniper all those years ago, single loading Mega rounds into my Nemesis.
Well, and imagine if you had a magazine for that, right?
Exactly.
Well, So Luke, like, how does it make you feel when you kind of put things out in the world like this, and to see people turning them around and doing other? Did you have any intent for Mega to be a pair to the Photon wheels?
We didn't anticipate people doing stuff with Mega with the wheels, though. You know, we've always done that trick where you can throw a Mega dart or two inside the rival round. Right. And that's always sort of been a hidden feature, or, you know, something that I've used frequently on the field, where we've got a game type that allows for shield piercing or some other special reason to have Mega. But we love seeing this stuff. And this is a huge component of why we went open source this time around. There were a lot of reasons that we wanted to remake the Jupiter. We learned so much over the last 5 years. The design of Jupiter it just feels very primitive as far as assembly, print, reliability in printing, and a variety of other problems. It's got a lot of wasted support material. It has a higher failure rate. It uses toy screws. So we got to. It was fun to get kind of a 2.0 version to release Juno and fix all the problems. Really, you know, improve on all the customer feedback we've heard over the years. Consequently, the files for Juno or Jupiter are completely broken, like just broken. We never can't figure out why. It's something with Fusion, so there was no continuing or redesigning the existing ones. So we basically started over. And during this time period, you know, the dates are a little fuzzy for me, but I think Jupiter it was about 5 years ago. Printing has changed so much, and the 3D printing community has grown so much from 5 years ago to now. About the best printer you could buy back then was like an Ultimaker if you had a couple $1,000s, or you could get a Mark II, a Prusa. That was probably the best, and that had plenty of problems with this is pre having removable beds. The bed leveling wasn't reliable. You know, there's all these things. So we've always wanted to be part of the open source, do more open source and put things out there. But we've always, of course, been fearful of like losing all that control, and things go really fast. But the hobby has shifted so much to be centered around 3D printing, and not just vendors 3D printing, but people printing at home. And I just can't see not being part of that. So a little peek into the future, majority of our designs are going to go that way. As far as things that we release that are our own designs, and trying to work with essentially all designers where that's the case universally. So I envision a future where anything that's sold on our site, if it's a 3D printed item, you can get the file one way or another. So that's our hope awesome. For the future. But I love seeing people adapt it, make their own stuff, take the wheels and do things with them. It's more fun, and we feel more involved in the community that way too, rather than just like, here's this thing, you can buy it. Now, if we had tried this 5 years ago, right, I'm not sure that, you know, people's average printer, it would have been a nightmare. Customer service and troubleshooting various printers. I could never have seen that working well.
I remember the prints you'd see around then. I mean, just a couple years prior, just about the only places you could get prints from, as I remember, Containment Crew had ABS stuff. You had like Slidev making a couple things, and the prints were not the greatest. I mean, even like production hobby stuff, this was probably closer to 7 years, but like you'd get these random accessories and they had just terrible layer lines and infill on them. So I couldn't imagine what it would have been like with customers.
The standards have changed so much now too. Mm-hmm. There's I've had my hands on a few of like Slug's early prints, and like compared to like a print from now, like at the time, I'm sure that was great, you know, and obviously the blasters have survived, like they're functionally great, but you look at a modern print, and it's just so much more slick.
Oh yeah,
and so much easier, cleaner. I think, to tune things and get them cleaner. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of our locals for the longest time ran one of the original runs of the Mega Burns, and almost every part on that they had won in the tournament back then is now broken of Slug's prints. And so they've since replaced it with they've replaced it with the Seagull that they got from your guys' store. But it was funny finally seeing him retire it in exchange for something new, because he had basically cobbled that thing together more times than I can count.
Yeah, that's funny. It's printing. I mean, we've always been obsessed with quality, and trying to make sure that things don't go out that don't represent exactly what we'd want to see on a review channel. Like basically everything should look like what I would send to the equivalent of my channel who's going to show close-up details. But if I go back and look at the stuff from 8 years ago when I started the business, it would be embarrassing by today's standards.
Yeah.
The hobby has grown so much in the 3D printing department that it's gotten kind of wild, because I've had friends who do printing in the hobby and then they'll go to conventions to sell, and they're selling stuff outside of the Nerf space, and the level of standard that the average person sells that they think is acceptable to sell and what the average consumer outside of the hobby is fine with is completely different than what a hobbyist is okay with. The amount of infill and time we put into making the prints look a lot nicer now compared to, say, your average like arts festival, and someone's like printed off a file of Master Chief's helmet they found online, and it maybe has like 10% infill, and you see layer lines galore, and a random guy goes up and he's like, "Whoa, that's so cool!" And then stuff.
It's a Monet. From a distance, it looks great, but up close, it's just a big old mess, right? It's one of those things, and I could attest to that too. I've noticed on Etsy for things that are outside of our hobby, at least, the quality is just not there. Our hobby has gotten really, like fickle about the quality of these prints and how good, because it's a showpiece. They're not sanding it, they're not painting it. It is print and showman. Like it is going to be built, and that's its like beauty right there. And if it's not up to a par, or up to a certain standard, it really people criticize it pretty heavily now.
Well, and part of the thing for this hobby is we're not just making things to be beautiful. They're functional, and they need to put up with abuse, and they need to put up with time out on the field and being run hard and taking friction and heat and standing up to some abuse. So I think I would imagine a lot of that is out of necessity, right? Like Luke, I assume y'all test stuff, so it probably became pretty apparent pretty quickly kind of how sturdy things need to be.
Absolutely.
In order to keep them running.
And that's always been the foundation. Some parts get more infill and more walls than others based on what they need it. But our default is probably higher than your average hobby printer, and it's certainly higher than the average setting that's on any of the slicers as far as recommendations. But when you're selling a product, the worst thing is someone needs you to replace it and you come back to it. And on that note, we do constant, if parts break, we don't care how long you've had it. We'll fix it. I mean, we're going to do that for as long as we're in business as far as our 3D printed items go. So if people, we get people coming back with like 2-year-old stuff, we'll still replace it. But the better we print it, the fewer of those come back to us, and the easier easier our jobs are.
Yeah, do it right the first time. For sure. Speaking of buying stuff, we're just going to call that a transition. We've been talking a lot lately about the products on the Asian market. I don't really want to get your perspective on this. And we kind of talk about this like every episode right now, because there's new wild stuff showing up constantly now. And not, historically, a lot of people think of like Chinese blaster products and it's like cheap Stripe copies and like whatever. But no, we're seeing like really cool like machined blasters and like brand new designs and really innovative stuff. This episode we covered what apparently is called the Dragon Bone. The person that did a YouTube video about it seemed like uncertain if that was really the right translation. Although I'm fairly confident that the person who made the video is a native Chinese speaker. Anyway, who knows? I don't know if you've seen this.
I have, yeah.
Okay. It is a full metal replacement for the grip and power system of the Knockout, of the rival Knockout, which, as we talked about on the show, if it's truly fully compatible, that potentially gives new life to all of these Knockout rebuild things, like the Meeker rocket launchers and the Mega XL adapter things, and all that stuff now has like a second life potentially, except for the cost, which is like $100 right now. But like anything, if it's produced more widely, price could potentially come down. But I'm kind of wondering, from your perspective in the business side of this, what is the likelihood of us starting to get stuff like that, like get the attention of the people producing this stuff and start to check some of it out in the West and maybe get some of that imported? Like, would Out of Darts ever pursue carrying a product? Maybe not this one if it's $100. I don't know how that looks. But would Out of Darts ever consider carrying products like that and sort of bringing them to this market?
Sure. So with Out of Darts, our main focus with anything we carry going forward, especially, is quality. And it has to be reliable. It has to be a production, well thought out, thoughtful product. And I think a really good example of this, and a very successful product launch, was the XWell Unicorn. That blaster, I think, at the price point and the features it offers, is a really solid offering from China, from a essentially brand new manufacturer. And we are going to see more and more of these. I would expect we see 10x of them in the next couple of years as far as releases. And the quality is getting better and better. Most of these manufacturers are pivoting from Gelball and airsoft manufacturing because of the laws that have changed over there. So there are literally hundreds of companies that now need to find something to make, and a lot of them are trying to make dart blasters. The problem, of course, is that a bunch of them are terrible.
Yes.
But there are some really standouts. I mean, the Unicorn is phenomenal. And I have numbers on, we sell so many and we know how many we get back or have problems with, and it's very, very low. And those are the kind of products we want to have, because we want to make sure that we're selling stuff that people are ultimately happy with. So the more finicky and the more niche something is, the harder it gets for us to carry it. Now, Dragonbone looks like a pretty solid mod. So if I get in contact with them and it looks like it's something that we would do, it's certainly something we could offer on the shop. But again, we move a little slower than we used to, and that's really intentional because I want that in my hands. I need to test it. I need to pass it around to my team. We need to play with it, and that's all before we would ever consider placing an order. Are
there any things that in particular that led to that slowdown in your process, being more cautious with products coming in?
I would say there are several products that we have over-purchased inventory on and haven't thought through as much. And then on the whole, our product catalog got bloated between you and everybody listening to this, me and everybody listening to the podcast, I guess here. We've grown along with the hobby. And, when I started, I had one product, and at peak, we had 1,200 SKUs. I probably don't have to tell you how difficult it is to stock and order and track and deliver 1,200 SKUs through the pandemic. We are now down to 970 or something last time I looked, but I have a goal of getting far below that because we want to be experts on every single product we carry. We can't be experts on 1,000 products. It's just not possible.
Of course.
So we're looking for the best products to be on the shop, and hopefully a pretty wide range. So we're trying to make sure that we know everything about a product before we launch it. And to do that, it's got to be a solid product. We can't launch 50 products that are all 10 pieces or 20 pieces. When I started the business, it's like I'd buy off, we were initially buying for work or prior to having a relationship with them directly. It's like we would buy through Buy China. I got totally screwed once, by the way, $2,500. That was a good lesson. Early on too, so it meant a lot at the time. But we would buy 10 pieces of a grip or 15 barrels, and we can't at our scale now. Like I can't pay my people to have hundreds of products where we only sell a few a month of each product. It has to be something that's a little higher volume. That said, Dragonbone specifically would be popular enough to carry. I will say we're getting more and more inquiries from these Chinese companies directly. They are finding us or hearing about us and reaching out directly. We also work with a number of middlemen, middlewomen, I guess, however you want to say it, both, technically, literally both, but in China that are looking at products and sourcing things for us or helping us sourcing. So we'll probably see more and more of that, and we're going to be heavily involved because like the Unicorn, we also have inverted scales and hamster coming. And both of those are two more Chinese produced blasters, and they both look to be pretty solid. So, and Sweetheart Storm, but though that's technically an Australia company using China to manufacture, a little bit different, but we're going to see more of that essentially. And Worker's not going to be the only game in town, though we do love our relationship with them, and they've been, great to work with.
Yeah. That's cool. That's fun to hear. I'm making fun of the price of the Dragon Bone, but I love my Meeker Mark 28 a lot, and I would probably buy at least one to upgrade it. That would just be so nice to have if it's good, if you got it and checked it out and it was
super solid.
Yeah,
I'd
that
almost
would be
curious
so cool.
how compatible that is with Shanye's. They have this kit that if you take some fishing wire to the bottom of the grip and attach some other stuff, it basically auto primes itself to a degree, the chamber, and takes a magazine.
I remember that. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be curious to see how that is compatible with that, and if there's any performance increase, if they've increased plunger volume or anything else with it. It almost looks like, based on how the machining looks, it looks similar to, or at least reminds me of that one metal internal tube lever action we covered last year.
Well, I guess part of the question is it just compatible with the old blaster at the points where it meets it, or is it part for part compatible and just made out of metal? You can tell that the pull, it's a T pull, which looks way better than the original pull on the on the Knockout to me. But beyond that, that's a question mark. Well, maybe someday Out of Darts will get them in stock, and we'll be able to find out. Moving on, we have this segment on this podcast now. We have a Ko-Fi, and we have a handful of dutiful supporters who we love so much. And one of the perks that they get is to ask each of our podcast guests a question. If you, dear listener, would like to ask some of our fabulous guests questions, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi. There's other perks. It's fun. It's cool. Check the Ko-Fi. It's got the whole list of it. After this, we're going to be, there is one other way to maybe get to ask one guest a question for free, but we'll explain that right after this. For the moment though, Luke, we have, and actually a couple questions for the hosts as well, but we have some questions for you if you're ready.
Sure.
For me to pass those on. So Iron Gopher, not only one of our supporters, but a friend and a fabulous modder, multi-time mod spotlight selected folk, asks, what kind of hair product do you use? and you can answer that first, actually, because it's sort of a multi-part question.
Yeah, so it's
I guess no, it's all tied together.
Okay, go ahead.
On. What kind of hair product do you use, and what camera setup is recommended for capturing the glory of said hair in video and stills? There we go. Let's do that part first.
Sure. So I haven't changed for oh my gosh, what does that make it? 23 years. I started using Got to Be Glued. It's like this yellow stuff, yellow bottle. when I was 15. When I was 15, and you couldn't. The funny thing is, I used to have to get it at like a actual hair product store because I found it through theater. We used it on a stage play that I was in.
Yeah, of course.
To hold hair really in place, and I was like, I'm gonna use this for forever.
Yeah.
I had some ridiculous hair in high school, like silly spikes. It was just silly, but yeah, I haven't changed, and I keep wearing that. For camera and filming, was that the next part, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. What camera setup is recommended for capturing the glory?
So it's all about the light. Lighting is everything. So because you can take your a regular phone or a cheap camera and put it in front of our lighting setup, and it's going to look good. It's all about balance. It's about having, for a person standing in front of there, you want the person to be a little brighter, have them softly lit. Our setup is very simple. It's a nice softbox. It's a silver reflector on the other side to fill in the other side of the face. And then it's a backlight, which catches that hair, gives you that nice edge so you can see, you kind of pop out of the background. And then it's two spotlights that hit kind of the back wall, so you get a little bit of accent light. And really, if you can figure out lighting, and these days YouTube is amazing. If YouTube had been like is now when I went to film school, I never would have gone to film school. And I wouldn't recommend anybody go to film school, even if you think you want to be in film. Personally, unless you got someone with a lot of money that just wants to throw money at your education, that's fine. You'll have a good time. But these days you can learn so much on YouTube. So learn how to light. That's really the first thing, because the camera virtually doesn't matter. I mean, we're shooting on an R6 Canon. It's a nice camera, but it's 4 years old. We have good lenses.
Wow.
It's good gear. And we chose that camera because it also does it does all the photography on our website. If you like that, Perry basically has done, since he took over photos, he's photographed literally almost virtually everything on the site. So I get to take no credit for the photos anymore.
It's gratifying to hear you say that, because I mean, my video quality is nowhere near what y'all are doing, but I have evolved over the course of this show to realize the importance of lighting. And there's a distinct shift in my part of the episodes where I realized, wait a second, if I put this other attachment on the little lights that I'm using and it puts the front light just on me, I can color light the background and I pop in front of it and the overlays show more clearly because the background isn't lit in that. So like for what I'm doing, I feel like I've dialed it in a lot better. I have a long ways to go, I think, but like
it looks substantially better than when you started, for sure.
It's such
I would also have to agree with Gopher on the camera quality. Having actually had to, I always manually clip out the stuff I'm going to use in a thumbnail. So having manually done that for the photo you sent us, I will say it was the nicest one to work with. I could get individual like hair follicles sticking out easier than I could on any other picture I've had to work with. It was so easy to work with. It was great.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, you've already answered a lot of Gopher's more serious side of his question, which is what advice do you have for people trying to photograph? And actually, I'm so glad he's asking this question, because we are constantly getting submissions for of like people's like professional work, like designs and new blaster designs, and plus like mods for the community crosshairs. And there's like one really terrible picture, and that's it. And it's like, I really want to feature your work. It's amazing. Please point the camera at the whole thing. You know, like I
turn on a light.
Yeah, I think it's so
room.
important. It's so important for us to educate, I think, the hobby about how to present the work that you're doing, because the internet is how we share this stuff, and it's through a lens. So Gopher asks, what advice do you have for people trying to photograph, take competent video of their work, and or events for display within the hobby? And I think you've addressed a lot of that, but he also asks, if necessary, would you prioritize video quality or audio quality?
So for the photography portion or video portion, start with looking at your environment. I mean, the best thing you can do is make sure that the environment you're, say, putting yourself or your blaster in is distraction-free and just doesn't have, whatever it is, tools sticking out of the back of your head, or a 3D printing runner running right behind your cheek, that sort of thing. Or if you're going to photograph a blaster, tidy up where you're going to put it. I see stuff, people send photos of blasters. It's like there's just stuff everywhere. You can go throw it in the grass, throw it on a neutral surface, and then look at light. Generally direct sun, if you're not familiar with shooting and filming, like direct sun is probably going to be your enemy for taking a flattering picture of a person or an object. You're better off looking for open shade or reflected light. Think, a cloudy day, or the shady side of a building on a sunny or partly cloudy day, where essentially the clouds themselves become the light source. So they're a nice big soft box in the sky. Filmmaking is all about light when it comes to camera work. Gaffers in the film industry are responsible for actually technically lighting a scene, and they are the most important, probably the most important part of visual. And then when you talk about prioritizing audio or video quality, as much as I am a video person, if you don't have the basic audio figured out, you're dead on arrival. You cannot.
Yes.
You can have the worst shaky video, but if your audio, and these days, audio is so easy. I mean, we do have like quote unquote decent mics, but we don't have like industry pro stuff. Comparatively, like I used to own better equipment than we use currently. For a couple $100, you can be set up with very nice lav setup or wireless setup. We actually just switched to DJI, the Go 2 mics, which are incredible little mics that you can, they're wireless and we plug a lav into them. But
I'm like about to order those.
They're pretty
it's just
darn
like
nice.
It's so easy to get you. I mean, it's like most things in like content production or musical instruments or most things that are like specialized in any way. You get 90% of the way there with like just not the cheapest thing.
Yeah.
And then like anything beyond that is like diminishing returns, which doesn't mean it's never appropriate to go that far, but if you just like put a little bit in, you can get so close.
Certainly.
And go so far.
And compared to where, so it's been my channel's 9 years old, 9 years old it must be approximately. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that. But what I had to film with at that point, I mean, I was shooting the original episodes of the channel with $6,500 camera bodies, and I had $20,000 worth of lenses. I mean, I had a single light that cost about $8,000. We're down to our whole kit isn't even as much as that light now. It is so accessible.
I remember watching one of your videos where you like mentioned that the light on the other side of the camera was like ridiculously expensive, and it was just such a like weird non sequitur. But I was like, yeah, it's like that sometimes. And you were working on some like awful. One of those like dart zone like little blasters. One of those. It was it's just so.
But
silly.
it's like these days, this stuff is so accessible because if you can't afford the DJI version, there is $100 knockoff version on Amazon it's probably 75% as good. And camera wise, a small mirrorless camera does amazing things these days. Heck, even a used 3 or 4 year old mirrorless or SLR camera can do really good things with video. So it's the barriers to entry are lower than ever, and then that doesn't not even to talk about what the phones can do now. They're pretty impressive as well.
I only record on my phone. I don't have a camera.
Hey, that's great.
I record on my phone too. Depending on I've noticed the biggest thing was always the lighting and the color of the walls or the room I was in. So some video looks really unflattering because of the place I had to record in. But if I can get like Luke said, in like a shade or like a slightly overcast day, it always looks best on those ones. Whereas it's not direct sun and it's fairly decent lighting outside.
It's funny. The only thing I think that's going to send me getting a camera soon is trying to work with a teleprompter. The phone can't handle a mirrored teleprompter. It tries to autofocus and you can't turn off the autofocus on like any of the apps on the phone. And so anytime I have a nice little teleprompter that's designed to use with like a DSLR or whatever, but if I put the phone behind it, it's constantly trying to focus on the glass.
Yeah.
No matter how clean the glass is, it just like catches reflections and it's constantly trying to focus on it and it cannot figure it out and it's just useless. And so one of these days I will be looking straight at the camera to do these news segments, but for now I'm doing a little eye dance.
I'm really pleased with my setup right now, but I get the little cheat that I don't actually have to be in front of a camera since I was
going to say you look perfect every episode.
Yeah, I get to really dial in my mic since I just have like a standard computer microphone, and I get to have my vertical second monitor with like a Google document form open with my script that I got to read.
So nice. Most animated performer on the show too, I have to say.
Yeah.
Does anyone know what Iron Gopher says when he tells the hosts secret strikes? This is part of his question, and I do not know what it means. Anybody?
I don't actually know. I was looking at that. I was like, did he just like secretly message you something that me and him aren't supposed to know when we look at the thing?
I remember the blast or the secret strike.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. But
Vile is being awfully quiet right now.
I don't know anything about it. I know nothing. Gopher plays games constantly with me, so there's probably going to be something
there's
that
a joke
up.
in there somewhere, I'm sure.
There's a joke possibly somewhere there. I have no idea.
If you want to know the answer to this, probably just tune into Vile's stream and it'll probably come up at some point.
I guess since we don't know that at the very least, I will circle back to photo quality. yeah, please take better photos.
Oh my
One of
God,
the
yes.
largest things that determines as to whether or not your item ends up on the thumbnail is how good the photo is. Like, I was looking
Yes.
at multiple things. I looked at the Maraca photo that Valor took, and I was like, all right, I found it. And it just ended up on the thumbnail like that. Like, if you can take a really good photo, there is a high chance your product probably will end up on the thumbnail. So it's just like
video too.
It-
So
it's
like
that
one of the
easy.
things that impacts the show is like scripts will get longer or shorter depending on how much visual content we have to fill
Yeah.
the segment. And so if you design a blaster and there's good video of it operating, we're in heaven. Like we get to
Exactly, yeah.
like we can put that in there. We can narrate it. Sometimes the sound is useful, but like if your thing that you've designed has like 2 pictures, we have to keep the script as short as possible because I don't want to just have like one person talking with a single picture for like 3
Yeah.
minutes. It's so bad.
Yeah.
So that stuff is relevant, and it's just relevant for people taking interest in the thing that you designed. Like if you make the coolest thing ever, but there's one picture of it, and a lot of the people reading it may not understand what it is just by looking at it. Like if it's an adapter to turn a blaster into shooting some crazy ammo type, you need like a picture of it, like with the ammo type, with it loaded, little video of it shooting, show us how well it works, and that stuff tells the story so much faster than the text that explains what's going on.
And turn your phone sideways.
Oh my God! Turn your phone.
If you're gonna use your phone,
get
turn
the
your
whole
phone
thing
sideways.
in the
Like
frame.
the full camera resolution.
Get the whole
just
thing in the
not vertical,
frame.
please.
Please, yes, get it in frame. Turn your phone sideways, please. I don't understand why we're still saying this for so many years. Yeah,
Oh, it's only going to
deep
get
breath.
worse. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I mean, what
I
Bobo
know.
made a video like years ago saying things I wish hobbyists would stop doing. It was like feet pics in the like the photo of the blaster, and it's still a problem. And that video is like from 2018 or something.
People on Wallcom's Discord will reply with put the feet emoji in the reacts every time.
Yeah,
that
they'll
happens.
react
It's
with a
great.
bunch of feet.
All right, next question. Colin Blank asks, what was it like to see your work featured in Jimmy Kimmel? Did that help drive interest to the website?
Oh, hey, Colin. Jimmy Kimmel was like, what a ride. I mean, we put that together in 3 weeks. We weren't planning on doing it when we did it. It was such a grind because we didn't have any extra bandwidth when it really came down to it. But I was like, I'm not saying no to this. It drove 0 traffic to the website. But I have a kind of a fun story there. So I have a friend who's a marketer and works for some, I won't mention the corporation, but she's worked for a couple different large entities and worked in Hollywood area. Anyway, she had this idea of like, we should buy the SEO, buy the keywords. So when people type in Jimmy Kimmel Nerf, we funnel them over to our site to a video about it. And so we had this already, and I ran the Google AdWords campaign because in the contract, I should be clear, like Jimmy Kimmel didn't owe us anything as far as being mentioned. I know Science Bob really wanted to mention us, but it just didn't work, or it didn't end up happening. But anyway, so we tried to buy it, but then Google thought they said we were abusing the search terms because they thought we were trying to get something that we were not related to. It'd be like buying, I don't exactly understand how that kind of marketing works, but essentially they shut down the campaign and we couldn't get it back up for several weeks. We had to appeal, and eventually by the time we got it appealed and we could have run it again, it was basically pointless because the views had happened and it was over. So, but getting to go down and travel down and support the show and be back seen was one of the more amazing experiences, because I've had a lot of experience. I've been on lots of film sets, but I've never done TV, and seeing what they do, and Jimmy Kimmel, man, that guy's just a straight up pro. Just seeing them prep and plan and go put on the show, it was really, really a lot of fun. I had hoped, the reason I said yes to it was like, this is a great opportunity to get our hobby in the faces of a lot of people. I don't know if it successfully did that, but I'll always say yes to opportunities like that. And I do have a few others coming up, nothing solid, but I hope that those opportunities will keep coming and that we can keep growing the hobby and, building awareness, because when I played paintball, I watched paintball. I played for a huge range of, from middle school all the way into college. And I watched that sport go from fewer than a million players to north of 10 million at its peak. And Nerf modding feels so much like that, which is what gave me the confidence to start this business, because it feels the fervor and the excitement and the passion behind the hobby feel very similar to the energy that was in paintball when that was growing. People used to tell me, I'd say paintball, I play paintball, and they're like, paint what? And at paintball, we shoot paint. And it was an endless conversation. And I feel like I'm having kind of the same thing with Nerf.
About Jimmy Kimmel, you don't know which opportunity is going to be the one that takes off until you do it, right? And on some level, it's like you kind of got to run with every one of them that could, and worst case scenario, you learned a bunch of stuff, you got a bunch of experience out of it, right? And worst case scenario here, you got to see your stuff on Jimmy Kimmel's show.
Absolutely.
Like, that's cool for you, if nothing else. You know who I haven't mentioned on this podcast in a long time? I have a friend, Jonathan Mann, and I bring him up relevantly. He's this guy, he's written a song every single day, approaching 6,000 days now of writing a song every single day. And one of the things that has happened to him is he has no clue which songs are going to take off. Huh. And he's had a bunch go viral, and most of them are like, he wrote a song about when like Hillary Clinton did the little shimmy thing. He wrote a song about that, and that got featured somewhere on the news and like went viral. And he wrote a song about the iPhone 4 antenna thing way back in the day, and Steve Jobs found it and played it as his keynote about it. And you just don't know. It's factors outside of your control. But if you keep putting yourself out there, that's sort of how those opportunities happen, and how you are more prepared for them when they come. So
absolutely.
I like, for you to be in the position to do that, I'm thankful that you did it. It's good for everybody. There's definitely more than 0 people that found out about this hobby from that.
Definitely.
But we may never meet those people or know who they are, but I'm glad they're out there, hopefully enjoying it. Ghost Armory asks for all of us, I think he means evolution. With the continuing evolution of technology, what challenges have been made easier today by something that was introduced after we started on our current paths? And what technology do we look forward to that will make your production better or processes easier? I'm looking forward to AI being like banned or something, so that that's not a looming threat over the creative I'm sorry, that was the first thing that came to mind. We don't have to talk about that, but I don't know. Who wants to answer this question?
I guess I don't know if it didn't really come before. It was already there. I'm just glad I've discovered softwares for like PNG tubing that are better. It definitely makes it easy if I get the feeling back in the day, you used to see people a couple years ago who did like animatics and stuff, and they would have like an animated character on screen. They'd like hand draw a bunch of expressions and then manually edit in everything. We're now at the point where I was looking, there's a new software called like ToonTubers or something. So if I can get like a couple more frames, it almost makes it look like a moving image without even using Live 2D or other stuff like that. You don't have to manually paste those frames or like do a lot of the stuff. The software just does the work for you, and it's impressive seeing how far that goes, because it means stuff that I use could potentially change in the future and get even nicer, and that'll probably make stuff for you also probably easier when it comes to editing.
That will be nice.
For me,
really cool.
on the filming side and on the post-production, the camera tools, the audio tools on the production side on filming, and the lighting tools, and specifically like our setup right now for all the shorts that we shoot and all of the tutorials it's this DJI pocket camera or the Osmo Pocket, little gimbal camera. Combination of that with audio that just works and never fails. It just pairs magically and functions. Having that technical capability, and then the lighting, the LED lights that we've got where the color tones are really good. The color rendering index is very good, so you look good on screen. And then the post-production tools, which don't crash like they used to. They're faster. They have all kinds of features. Like just in the time that I've been doing Nerf, like it actually it hurts me, some of the stuff that's come out with Adobe. It like just simple things like we use a tool to do the captions for shorts, and it's built into Adobe and it's automatic. It literally
that's what I use now for the show. We don't apply the captions to the video, but when I generate the captions for YouTube, it's like 90% automated.
And that kind of tool, like that, it blows my mind, because I know I have spent personally thousands of dollars paying rev.com for people. It's literally people listening. It's a bit of they used to have it's partially AI, but then people have to correct it. And it's basically people are translating for you. Doesn't exist in the same way. I mean, the site still exists, but they use AI now, I think. But these tools have made life just for production so much easier, so you can focus on what's in the video rather than your audio problems or all this. And it's just such a big difference from when we started and finished to where not finished, but from where I started on the YouTube channel to now. So I think those are the biggest things for me.
That's really cool. I think one of the things that I'm discovering right now is the tech helps. Like when I upgraded Adobe at some point and was like, oh wait, I can just do the captions like this. That's great. That stuff helps, and that like trims a lot of things. But I think I'm realizing that the real way that I make the process better is just really taking a look at it and cutting out the fat. We've done a lot of that on this show. And really sort of focusing our efforts in all the right places and streamlining certain parts of the process and changing aspects of the show that we were like, we're putting all of this time and effort into this, and like the audience and us are not getting that much out of it, and just realizing that like the rest of the show gets better if we just cut this out. And I don't even need a technological solution to improve it. I just need to not do this anymore. And it makes the whole show better. I feel like right now I'm in a phase where that is a bigger impact on the process than changes in the technology.
Yeah,
prioritizing.
I'd certainly agree. You could take all the technology in the world and anything that we have now, put it like right when we started, and it wouldn't have made the process like any quicker. It was majority the practice combined with like determining what needs to be cut out, because I mean, we definitely said like after last episode, it just felt so much better and like nicer with how we got done with the last episode than it had like a couple months prior. And if you take a look at like scripts I still have saved in my Google Documents form from like a couple months ago compared to ones now on a similarly sized topic, they're just so much more condensed and like down to what needs to be said, rather than like 5 minutes on a single topic and you only get 8 stories. Now we can get like 12, 13, 14 stories plus half lengths and a thing. And
they're snappier and funnier.
Exactly. People are enjoying we're getting like better audience retention. People are enjoying the show more. Production quality is better. And we're getting more stuff in there in the same amount of time, approximately.
Yeah. So the technology is called less.
Yeah.
I think. less being more, for sure. Vile, did you want a concrete answer to this before we move on?
The only thing I mean, even if you looked at the original when I started, I had a Logitech cam and a $30 cheap headset, and my audio quality was good and my video quality was good. I've upgraded both of those, and I guarantee most people, if they go and look, would probably barely even notice the difference. Yeah. Sometimes tech, even if it's more expensive and if it just gets you that small little bit, sometimes doesn't make a difference. Sometimes it could be good where it is. And even for me, I think the biggest thing is sort of like what KT and Grim are saying. It's prioritizing and trimming what you don't actually need. Get to the point a lot of times. One of my is a little bit easier.
One of my biggest things that I learned through churning music equipment, and I think that this is true. I think this is really true for blasters as well, is your learned skills and your knowledge and your muscle memory are more valuable than a new feature almost every time.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, the time that you've put into learning a piece of equipment or a piece of software, I mean, it's one thing, like we were saying, if you're going from a version of Adobe Premiere that doesn't have this specific thing that automates something you're spending a lot of time on to a version that does automate it, yeah, that is going to save you a lot of time. You're going to have to adapt a little bit to how the new way works maybe, but like you're still applying. But like if you're going from Premiere to a completely different editing software because it has some feature that you've been sold on, you're going to be completely relearning your entire workflow. Absolutely not. You're better off without that feature, being able to actually spend time being a creative person in the place that you've invested all of your time and effort into. So that's always kind of like I'm looking for like the new thing maybe on that will add to what I already do, but not something that's parallel to that.
Yeah, and I think focusing on those improvements, the workflow improvements, like finding the best way to do things or the frictionless way to do things is huge. That's my entire business. I mean, it's not just the workflow on how we shoot and edit something, but Perry's constantly working on how to shoot and edit something, but we're also constantly working on how to produce things better, how to touch pieces of product in the warehouse less, and those processes and systems. That's literally the entire business now because it's the only way that we can keep up with the growth and keep building a company and keep paying people more and just making life better.
Wise words. Yeah, for sure. Final question. And speaking of running a business, Krain of Blaster Time, also a Ko-Fi supporter of ours, thank you, asks Luke, in the history of Out of Darts, what has been the best day and what has been the worst day? Or the most memorable days?
Oh boy.
If you'd rather.
That's wild. Okay, so I think the best day, the day that sticks out was the day we moved into our first actual warehouse. So the timeline is we had a tiny garage in California, a 3-car garage and a shed in Washington, and then we moved into our first warehouse. And when we moved in and we got all the stuff moved, I had 3 employees working in my house, mind you. Like my baby girl, my 1-year-old is sleeping up, or 6-month-old is sleeping up above. And I've got people, they have to be careful not to slam the door when they come in and out. And the business had taken up 2 full rooms of my house. My office downstairs, which was packed with shipping inventory, and our largest room upstairs, plus stuff in the aisles, floor to ceiling in the garage and the shed. And when we moved into that first warehouse, it just blew my mind. Like it was terrifying and scary, but it was easily like the most impactful day for me because it hit so hard that this had turned into an actual business. And then another similar moment that was also really positive is I have some amazing employees. My team is just awesome. I love working with all of them, and I've had some opportunity to treat some of them well and take care of people when they're sick and things like that. And it's nice to be able to do that. And when they acknowledge that too. So that meant a lot. Now, worst day, that's a hard one. When it comes to worst day, I mean, there's always some rough days in business. Things can go off the rails pretty quickly. There was, gosh, I can't remember the worst product release. There have been a few product releases where like something happens and we basically have to reship everybody. I literally can't tell you what product it was. That's how our memories are, the sort of rose-colored goggles.
Right.
We forget what the things were. I do remember there was a time where I think this is pretty early in the business. I think we were in the first warehouse. We're now in the second, but I had to manually email about 160 people, and we had to reship 160 packages, and it was a slicing setting.
My God.
Yeah. Real fun.
Oh my God.
So we had to reprint, and we were just basically reprinting 160 orders worth of the same item. And it's so funny that I can't remember if that was like, it was something little like tuning caps or something, but it's like such a headache. And I take everything so personally because I don't want I want people to have a good time with our shop. I want people to have a great experience. And we don't always get it perfect, but we'll always make it right. And so for us to fail so many people in one go, it was just like, that's like straight up panic attack. Fortunately, that kind of day doesn't happen too often. And I'm grateful for that. But we are a lot more careful than we used to be too on releases. Take a little more time with checking things over and whatnot.
That sounds like a nightmare, but you survived, and you're still here.
Yeah.
The thing about moving to the warehouse makes me think about this sort of the separation of, or the separation of like, your home life and the business. And obviously, like, I mean, I largely work from home, but like, keeping that, even if you're passionate about the business, and like you said, like the people that work with you, like wanting to be able to take care of them and support them, but still sort of having that separation between home life and business. I know Vile helped Foam Blast close down, and for them, right, like that was like getting their house back.
They got, because like you were saying, Luke, it was like they had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom. It had moved slightly into their kitchen, their office, like that they both work out of, when they do stuff at home. And then they had a shed, and it was a lot. There was a lot of stuff. But when it was at that point, when they got towards the very end and they were like breaking down a lot of the shelving and stuff that they had in there, that all the product was on, it was like I remember them telling me, it's crazy because they're like, we're getting our house back. It's kind of weird, it was interesting because I'd also like gone over, and Michelle has got into a whole nother hobby and is doing just, they're both working their normal day jobs and stuff like that, and obviously taking a pretty heavy break from it. But it was funny. They built this huge, like in the backyard out of a bunch of scrap wood. It was like this off-road course for little RC rock crawlers and stuff, and was getting a 3D printing shed back up and running, and another shed, like another offshoot for like bike building and stuff, and was kind of getting into other hobbies that they sort of put to the side to run this business while also still working a day job. And it was kind of impressive just to see how much it taken over, obviously their house and their lives, and finally kind of getting their lives back, and then just having that day job only, and there's a separation between the two. It was interesting. You could definitely tell there's a massive sort of, I guess, relief, or like sigh of relief almost, once that realization sets in,
Definitely. And, it's such a similar situation than them kind of transitioning out of it and getting it out of their house. I when it was in my house, I also wrote the book that year, and I had a newborn baby during the time that I wrote the book. And I probably worked 80 hours a week or more for a year. We didn't take any vacations. We had the baby. So like getting it to the point where it's like I had grinded enough to get through and get it out of the house, and we're going to do this thing separately and not have to. Because I literally, when we had our baby, my first daughter, who's now 6, like I would work every waking minute. I would get up and we would feed her, 16 million times a night or whatever, every hour and a half. And I'd get 20 minutes of emails. Then I'd go start the next 15, 20 printers. And it was a nonstop, basically work 24/7. If I'm awake, I was working. And that's what it took to get this business going initially. And I'm very grateful now that it is far, far past. And yeah, that moment getting to that warehouse, boy, it still sticks with me. And there are times, I mean, even now, because our now current warehouse is like twice the size, and it is organized, and it is very streamlined and very efficient. And there are times when it does hit me. It's like I step back, I'm like, this is just wild.
It's a good place to be. I love watching the video in the warehouse. Grim has been to the warehouse.
Yeah, I've been to warehouse number 2. It was quite an experience. It was a very fun day for sure.
which people are only going to get that joke if they watch to the end of the bloopers in the last episode. Okay, so we are at the part of the show. In the past, we used to play this game called What's That Blaster? And that game, which I basically blatantly stole from a Pokemon TCG podcast that I listened to, where they would read the flavor text on the bottom of a Pokemon card and then have to guess what the Pokemon was. We did the same thing, but with official Hasbro descriptions of blasters, and we would try to guess what the blaster was. And the game was a lot of fun. We had a ton of fun playing it. And the reality was there is not that much content for it. Like, we were really having a struggle of a time trying to find good descriptions that were like vague enough to make it hard to guess. They were getting really easy to guess. We accidentally repeated one once.
I mean, you get to stuff like Elite 2.0 and they have like the same language for each one in the line that you could immediately pick out, like, so that's bad. Elite 2.0 or, oh, that's late Elite or something, just because they all use the same phrasing.
And a couple of us tried picking like Rebel blasters and stuff. Anyway, and like there's like giveaway words that just, anyway, we had to retire that game. And for a few episodes, we've wanted to replace it with something else. And I think I've finally come up with something. And today, Luke, you're going to be our guinea pig with this new trivia game. And this game I am blatantly stealing from the NPR show Wait, Don't Tell Me, where they play a trivia game with their special guest, where they make up a name for it that's a pun based on that person's name or their work, and they ask questions about something that's basically irrelevant to them. And if they are able to get 2 out of the 3 questions correct, they win a prize for an audience member who is selected from a hat or whatever before the show. And so I'm taking pretty much every aspect of that show. The only thing being the trivia questions will be in the Nerf realm. We're not going too far afield. Grim and Val, do you have the trivia questions doc open?
Yes, I have them all open and ready.
So today, Luke, we're going to have you play, your fabulous business is called Out of Darts. Today, we're going to have you play Out of Hearts. We will be asking you questions about Rebel, the Nerf range marketed towards all the mightiest mamas in your life, which came out right about when you started making YouTube videos.
It did.
How much do you feel like you know about Rebel?
Oh, medium. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. I love the blasters because the shells all have these nice smooth lines. They're great.
It's true. There's a lot of really good stuff. You will be playing to earn a prize, which is, our Ko-Fi subscribers get to ask a question of each of our podcast guests. The winner of this will get 1 free question for our next podcast guest, who is not yet announced, obviously. That's a different discussion. But just before this, I realized I hadn't drawn one, and so I just ran the random number generator, and if you're able to answer 2 out of 3 questions right, we will be giving that question to Katz of Katz Blaster Mods, a stalwart member of our community. So, Katz, cross your fingers.
I'll do my best.
Vile, why don't you read the first question? Yeah, Vile, why don't you read the first question?
Perfect. So, some Rebel blasters include a feature that allows you to shoot darts with secret messages that can be decoded by recipients with the right equipment. What is the name of the technology that was used for the secret messages?
Code Red? Red code?
It's multiple choice.
Oh, it's multiple choice. Oh,
yes.
This is easier than I thought.
It is multiple choice. Yeah.
It's a little easier than the secret here is we want you to win.
Oh, well, that's good.
We want you to win.
I have this one, I think.
You have one. Now, this is it is either A, Rapid Red, B, Red Reveal, or C, Invisible Plink.
What? It's got to be red. I mean, Rapid Red is a blaster. Hold on. Rapid Red Reveal. It's not the last one. Red Reveal? Let's go Rapid Red. That's the only one that sounds familiar. I don't. Rapid Red's a blaster, right? I know that much.
Rapid Red is a blaster. Rapid Red is a blaster. That's true. That's true.
Red Reveal. I mean, Red Reveal is what the. I'm changing my answer. Red Reveal. It can't be Rapid Red. That's just a blaster.
Is that your
That's
final
my final answer.
All right. It would be B, Red Reveal.
Oh.
So, yeah, everywhere that this technology is used in toys and stuff, it's consistently called Red Reveal. That's just some marketing person came up with that name a long time ago, I guess. But you see it in all kinds of like spy. I remember actually that term being used in like weird spy toys and stuff.
I remember those
in the 90s.
I'm sure it's a play on word. Like red, you can read it. Oh, it's red. Red Reveal. Yeah.
I vaguely remember that.
As a
from
little
childhood.
aside, I had to mute my microphone for a second because when Vile read off Invisible Plink, I started chuckling. I had to mute my microphone.
That was definitely intended as the obviously wrong answer. So I'm glad you caught on to that quickly. Plink, of course, is a hobby term, not a company term.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rapid Red, yes, is the Rebel Strife.
Yeah.
Anyway, Grim, why don't you go ahead and read the second question?
Alrighty. Question number 2. Rebel blasters are well known for including specially decorated elite darts, and some bows fired the same arrows as certain Zombie Strike blasters. But some Rebel blasters were released firing a third type of ammo. Was it A, Mega Darts, B, 24-inch arrows, like those used with the Dude Perfect bow, or C, water?
Ooh. I think it's the large arrows, whatever that was called. What was that blaster called?
Is that your final
Yeah,
answer?
we'll go with that. We'll go with the large arrows.
They're just called 24-inch arrows.
really what they're
That's like
called.
their only name, other than Dude Perfect arrows.
Yeah, I'm pretty
so
sure it's
that's your
that.
final answer then, yes?
I remember that. I remember being shot by that thing.
So the correct answer is C, water.
They did a water blaster?
Rebel had a whole Super Soaker Nerf line.
No
So
way.
the 24-inch arrows, as noted here, there was a canceled platinum bow that was revealed at Toy Fair for the Rebel line that was the original product those were supposed to come with, but it was never released, which is why the Dude Perfect bow ended up using them.
Was that the one
It
that
ended up reusing what was-
feeded? It would like auto feed itself? They would stack?
No, it's just a bow. I
was
got to
just a
play
bow.
with them one time actually. Someone had some at like a outdoor fair thing that I played a show at here recently, and like one of the local schools was donated like a set of 6 of those things. So I got to play around with one for a minute. It's just designed to be like as close to archery as you can get at that sort of power level.
Nice.
So it's just a bow. So unfortunately you're 1-0 or 1-1. And so, but if you can get this one, that'll be a win. So here's your third and final question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Rebel was a girl-themed spin-off of Nerf's supposedly gender-neutral Elite line. What girl-themed spin-off of a TV show featured a guest actress who also appeared in a Nerf Rebel TV commercial? A, Fuller House, 2016 to 2020. B, Girl Meets World, 2014 to 2017, or C, Batwoman, 2019 to 2022.
What? Oh, and I didn't see that one. That is so obscure. Wait. Okay, it's got to be... I don't know.
I can read them again if you
Yeah,
want.
give me those again. Fuller House I didn't even watch.
Fuller House, 2016 to 2020. B, Girl Meets World, 2014 to 2017. C, Batwoman, 2019 to 2022.
Wow. I'm going to go A, I guess. That's a shot in the dark, though.
Why? Have you seen?
I have seen none of the 3 of these
Any of them?
shows, so that doesn't help. And I know the premise of Fuller House, so I have no idea.
Do you want to guess a different one?
Well, the one I know the least about is C, so that'd be my next guess. I get them wrong in order.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to guess another one?
Oh my gosh, B, that's terrible. Wow.
Okay. You're right. It's B. Girl Meets World. So the actress's name is Daniela Taylor, born Daniela Orion Perkins. She appeared in a Nerf Super Soaker Tri-Threat TV spot in 2015 as an unnamed girl in teal shorts. And in 2016, had a one-off role as Zoe with 2 short spoken lines. Congratulations, you got 2 out of 3. We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch, Cats, with to get your question for the next one.
Looking at the description and the little trivia questions list again, I'm pretty sure I actually owned the Tri-Threat. I'm pretty sure we were replacing our water blasters, and I remember I got myself like this Zombie Strike quad shotgun pump action one, and my little sister got the Tri-Threat, and then she stopped using it, so I just started using it.
Oh my goodness.
One of my other friends started using the shotgun because the grip was too uncomfortable for me.
I'm gonna drop for your perusal later, y'all. I'm gonna drop the links to both the scene in the show and the ad, which I found online. You can actually see her in both things, and it's clearly the same person. I'll put that in the description of the podcast for anyone else that's curious. But thank you for playing, and we can move on. We mentioned earlier. We mentioned gel. We sure did mention gel, didn't we? Gel blasters are kind of the hobby's favorite punching bag right now, and they've had so many legal issues. And one of the things we're reporting on today is it seems like the Hydro Strike line, the Dart Zone Hydro Strike line, may be on its way out. It's unclear. It's a little bit unclear. The website disappeared a few days ago, or like a week ago. But their other one, which is Gel Zone Pro, has the website's up and it has some of the stuff in there. A lot of stores are pulling products from shelves. Panel discussion. Is gel dead yet?
Well, I'll kick things off. I've played Gelball once, and I've fired many of the blasters, of course. But the thing I noticed with it is that the gameplay is terrible. When you have a blaster that's tiny and has a full auto and has so many rounds, 500 rounds, a lot of them.
Right.
I've watched kids at the park play too, and it's like there are 10 kids and they have a pretty 5v5 game, and they are all standing perfectly still behind a tree, just dumping gel. Not even letting go of the trigger between aiming at one tree and another. Just hold it on the first tree, move over to the second, back to the first, back to the second. And to me, it's not that interesting comparatively. Yeah. And our hobby really didn't pick it up at all. And I kind of don't blame them, because I haven't really enjoyed playing with them as much.
It vaguely reminds me of a lot of the gameplay sometimes I'll see with Airsoft, where there's that one guy who wants to be the heavy. He has 1,000 BB magazines, and he's just sitting there, just standing still, just completely full autoing. Whereas with Airsoft, at least the fans have the appeal of there's speedball, or I think it's Speedsoft is what they call it. And there are a number of playstyles that can augment how it's played that ends up making it a lot more interesting. And the other people also get into it for its more real steel appeal, whereas gel it doesn't shoot as far as Airsoft. It has the capacity, but you have these little beads, and the problem I end up seeing with that is I've seen multiple instances of, for example, Twitch streamers where they're like, oh, I got these little gel balls around, I'm gonna eat one, and then you see chat blow up saying, don't eat those, that's like a trip to the hospital, do not.
Yeah,
they're just a safety risk waiting to happen. And
that was what got them recalled from a lot of stores.
The gameplay isn't interesting, and the risk of lawsuit is just so high that I don't see it lasting very long. I mean, I had one of the original exploders, and I didn't really even enjoy them that much. I mean, within the first year of me owning it, I found myself gutting it and smashing it to bits just to rip the spring out, to throw it in a long shot, to mod the long shot, because that's all they were good for. They were really good for long shot upgrade springs, funny. And that's about it.
One of the things I mentioned in my segment on this episode is Hasbro seems to have won this lawsuit over the patent, which they seem to own like multiple of the patents associated with technology, or be the ones in control of that patent. And between that and the legal concerns about kids eating gel beads and certain and like states starting to restrict or ban them, it seems like, especially for a company like Primetime that's sort of medium sized, it's just not worth the risk anymore. Like it seems like it's tipping to the side that it's no longer worth it for what they're actually likely to sell.
Having actually
sense?
had some of the gel stuff in hand because I was sent them previously, some of your average Amazon sellers, I get the feeling and the impression after actually holding them and using them and taking a look at the inside, I don't think even the companies expected this trend to last very long. And I think most of them are banking on it being a viral trend, making them as cheaply in the plastic quality as possible. And so they have the minimal investment into the molds and everything. So that way they can just sell as many as possible at the lowest cost as possible. So that way when it dries up, they've made their money and can leave. Whereas it feels like Primetime and Hasbro took a different approach where they actually like banked some time looking into making like quality shells and other stuff, thinking like, oh, I can come at it from like we're the higher quality angle. But I just don't think the market's going to last long enough for that investment to have been worthwhile compared to the companies that just didn't bank on that. I mean, even with the exploders things, as I mentioned, it just feels like a trend that resurges every now and again. Someone's like, oh, that's a novel idea. Why did it go away? And then you're quickly reminded why it didn't stick around.
It's a short-lived feel, right? You get high capacity. These things can just, like Luke was saying, you just see kids just freaking holding the trigger and just going through hundreds of rounds like it's nothing. And it's in a small, compact space, but it loses its appeal very quickly. Even for kids, it sounds like it's probably going to lose the appeal very quickly. And a lot of this stuff, I've come across a lot of those small ones. I can't remember what they were called. They're one of the other gel ball, like high capacity pistol ones that are full auto. And I see the plastic, and those are ones that were sold in like Walmart. And even those, I see the plastic on them broken a lot of times when I see them in thrift stores. It is a short-lived kind of product is the only way I can see it, because for some reason, whether it's kids, whether it's the Chinese knockoffs, whether it's whatever, maybe it is Hasbro trying to get a FOMO thing, right? These products are selling. Maybe we should jump in on that too, because they're clearly doing well. But again, the legal aspect of things and people, kids eating the ammo and the, implications of what it can be like for hazard. Obviously, like you were stating about the states, it just sounds like such a short-lived, kind of fad. It's weird to say it like that, but it's the only way to explain it, really, because they're neat. You fire them off a few times, you're like, oh, that's fun, and then within a few minutes you're like, I just don't really care.
The like best thing I could recommend looking at that, if you want like something that fires spherical ammo, high capacity, and is goofy and just to hand your kid, I would just, as much as like the performance is too hot for kids, I would almost like say they should make like a rival junior line or something, it has lower performance, a priority on like the capacity.
I mean, Hyper
hand it to
sounded
kids
like it could have done that.
and let them just have a ball with that. It'll do the exact same thing. The ammo is much harder to lose. I've seen some Chinese companies experiment with making glow rounds. If you could do something like that, you could get most of the way there for what gel is trying to do, and it would be much safer for a kid.
What if there was I think about these little like ball popper toys. Man, what if we had like a little low velocity, like a proton pack, but like low velocity for those that you could hand to a kid? You just dump a bunch of those ball popper things in there,
Be pretty sweet.
and it just like sprays them out at like 50 FPS maybe. How much fun would that be?
Another thought on the gameplay. Another fun, not fun gameplay is 3 or 4 proton packs as the only players on the field. It's also equally boring. I think any game where you have basically unlimited ammo and there's no counter to that, Now, Proton Pack works because it only shoots 100. I mean, you can't get rival balls to fly anywhere near a 150 FPS Nerf short dart can do. Any hobby blaster. So you can put down a Proton Pack guy before he can even hit you. But I think it all starts with the gameplay for me. It just wasn't fun. And I talked to, we're in kind of a unique position with the business. We talked to a lot of arena owners, and I've probably talked to 50 or 60, phone and email, various conversations. And I have universally heard from them that the moment they get like a Nemesis or Prometheus out on their fields, it completely ruins the gameplay. They do much better with smaller capacity, whether it's mags or a front loader or quick loader, something that you're only loading, a dozen rounds or 2 dozen rounds, those games last longer and the kids have more fun than when you just hand them all the Nemesis universally on the field. And I think it's very similar with Gel.
We do have a local arena that I've seen a number of times. And the thing that I've always seen, arenas are like one of the best examples of looking at how a blaster will handle living a long shell life because of how much abuse they take. The local one, for example, I can tell you the most popular blasters were like that actually people didn't return were the Reflex 6. I believe there was the Saturn as the most popular. And then you had other like low capacity, but they fired and looked cool. Like that was the priority. It had to look cool so the kid felt like they were really powerful when they held it, and they'd want it. The Saturn especially because it held a decent amount of rounds. It was rival, so people thought it was cool because it was higher performance, and it looks like a shotgun. Whereas you take like something like the Jupiter, and they've not the Out of Darts one, but the Hasbro one, and they've probably jammed it 1,000 different ways to Sunday. And then they're just like, well, this stinks. And then they put it away. It's much harder, I've noticed, for certain things like the Kronos or the Saturn to get locked up. And they seem to have a lot of fun with those.
I love
as
the
soon
Saturn
as, like
so
you
much.
said, the Nemesis or any of those other things come out on the field, people stop having fun. I used to frequent one quite often. And I remember the owner would encourage me to go out on the field anytime one popped up to take them out so the kids could still have fun while I was waiting for my competitive rounds. So I'd walk in there with just an inline clip rival Fate, and the kids are like, what are you going to do against this guy? And I just take advantage of the like close quarter cover because they'd aim and just fire in a straight line and just like turn. And if I could run faster than they could turn, I could get behind them and get them. And then the kids would cheer, and then they'd get to go return to playing their fun while the guy waited to respawn. And that was my job. It was to take down the dude who was firing lines of balls downrange.
Grim, you're a playground hero. Well, we've been going for an hour and a half. I think it's time for our fun roundtable question. To close it out. So one of the creators that's been dropping a lot of new stuff lately is Bruce Lee. I checked. It is always 4 Lidls. And like a lot of people say the name and do like 3 Lidls, but it's 4. It's always 4 Lidls. Anyway, Lidl Dynamics has been on a roll with new stringer designs, and there's a break action pistol is the new the like one-handed break action pistol is the Maraca from this episode. There's a lever action bullpup, and this upcoming the unnamed like clip. It's like it has a hopper, and you put clips in the hopper, and it feeds the clips through and spits them out on the other side. And it looks like a little minigun, and they're all stringer powered. They're all elastic band powered. So if you could take any blaster form factor and have it redone as a stringer, what would you pick?
Ooh, I got one. I got a weird one. And this is something I've actually thought about prior to this question, because the stuff that Lidl is doing. Is that 4? I love the stringers. The stringers are so much fun. I've been meaning to actually print some stuff, but I've been busy with so many projects. Anyway, do you remember the Power Strike 48?
Yeah,
I'd love to see like that could be a stringer, and maybe it shoots 4 rounds per prime of and so the thing would rotate. I have a fascination with tubes and ammo, I guess. But I'm imagining the string could shoot 3 or 4 rounds.
Oh.
I can't remember how many rounds that had.
Oh, you take something like how the crossbow like picked it out through the magazine and then it loaded it. Okay, yeah,
So
and then you do it with tubes.
It would
instead.
do 1 tube at a time, and then the tubes would rotate. Probably difficult, but I think it could be done. So I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
It could work like the code breaker bow. Because it had a revolver in it.
Oh,
and
right.
Then it would drop the dart down low, and then the stringer, like the elastic, would basically catch the dart that was on the bottom side and fling that out the front. But if you have it where it's long enough for 4 darts or 4 half darts or whatever, and they basically just drop down to the little shelf basically, and then that's how the elastic could catch it. That could work.
Yeah.
I like it.
Because it was pump action too. It was a pump action bow, right?
Yep.
You don't need the bow arms. You could just literally attach it to the sides, sort of like Lidl does. And yeah, it's not out of possibility.
It's funny that you would bring that up because I was very close to doing a trivia question about that blaster.
Oh, I would have got that one.
I was very close.
As far as what I would want, he's already most of the way there. I was playing. This comes up a lot when I talk about blasters. It's like it's always Destiny is the game that comes up. I think I was in some dungeon or something with SFI Ryan, since he's our fire team leader. Anyways, we were talking about the bullpup lever action. I was talking about how it reminds me of some of the Destiny Scout rifles. I just thought it would be cool if there's like, you basically took something like a Lynx, but you made it a stringer. I think that would be cool. Because there are certain kinds of rounds where we have the lights dimmer and at local games in one of the places we play at. And I could just imagine me taking advantage of that to like quietly prime it and ready. Because I'm the guy who uses the least amount of shots typically, and positioning myself in the way that I could take advantage of them not hearing me. That would be great. That would be awesome. It would look sci-fi and silly, but at the same time, it would be very effective and quiet.
Yeah.
That would be like my ideal stringer. Bullpup, pump action, kind of sci-fi vibe.
I am trying to confirm that I have the right name of a blaster. That I have the Arbalist by Artificial Armory.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that?
Okay.
So I have one of the earlier. It's sort of like a late prototype of that, and it is technically a stringer, not in the way that Lidl does them, but it is an actual string, the arms take the tension pulled by cable, which actually provides, and the elastic metal arms provide the actual firing power, and it looks like it's a giant wide crossbow, but when it's actually strung up, it tightens in, and it's reasonably narrow. It's pretty crazy when you get it up to tension. It's a little scary sometimes, but it's a really, really cool piece. I would love to see something chain fed. That is not reasonable or useful necessarily, but it would be cool. It would be really cool just to. There's so many Vulcan chains and Crusher chains floating around. Let's make something goofy that they work with. I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen more people make more stuff that takes advantage of some of the chains that we already have.
So I've seen
The
one
chains and
thing,
belts that we have.
but this
I'm
was
just gonna sit here quietly.
yeah. There's one thing I've seen that takes
What?
them. However, it's not replicable. I saw it when I was actually in the Out of Darts warehouse at one of the wars. I think he goes by Dr. Pew or something. He does a lot of like HPA work. He had taken a crusher, a regulator, and a bunch of stuff, melded it together, and it fed crusher chains, and he had it like HPA powered, fully automatic. That thing was crazy, and it was really cool.
It's wild.
One of the better uses I've seen of those chains. It was
cool.
it was so awesome. He had like a little engineer's helmet on with it, and it was fun. It was fun.
That's awesome. All right, Vile, what you got?
All right, so Well, if it's chain fed, I got a totally different thing. But if it's what I want is Mega XL, and I want like a double string setup. I would like where when you prime it back, the strings both like, because if you ever look at how a lot of stuff Lidl does, right? There's like a little shelf, and the string goes and it caps around that shelf, and that's what holds it in place. And then you just have the trigger just kind of pushes up on it, and it catches the dart and flings forward. But I would feel like with a Mega, you'd have to have two, like a Mega XL, it'd have to have two strings, and then they both catch separately on two different ledges. And then that way it has to basically interact with both. Just for the, if it's a Mega XL, it's already ridiculous. And just to propel it, you might as well just go ridiculous as well.
Yeah. And
I'm looking at that and I'm like, what blaster would this mechanism like fit in? And I don't even know. I keep looking at the Gallarhorn up on my wall. Like, if that was just a stringer, that would be really interesting. I don't know why.
Well, but, someone in our Discord said when they saw the Maraca, they were like, "Oh, I wish that you had that shot Mega," and he was just like, "Just print it bigger." Because there's
just scale it up.
There's no plunger tube that you have to source. There's no spring that has to be upgraded. You just tie a longer string on it and you print it bigger. You'd have to lengthen the space that the dart goes in unless you wanted to do cut down Mega, in which case you'd have to have a magazine. But like even that wouldn't be that hard to modify the files to do.
Widen it out and make it take Centurion mags. That's a little mini like break action, almost bolter style thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's one of the nice things about stringers, rather. Like, you can just make them as big as you want.
True.
Why not? Sweet. Well, normally when we finish the closing question, I say, X big company, Nerf or whoever, contact us for licensing. But Lidl, you can just have these ideas. We like you. It's cool. You can just
make it work. Just
fine.
Yeah, like you make that stringer. I will get one. I will get one. Ideas just out there. I just want to see it made.
If you want to gift us the files, you can. Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. It's cool. And with that, I think we've neared the end of our podcast. Luke, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been incredibly fun. It's an honor to get to hang out with you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful to be on the show and really appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep the news coming as well. And it's nice to have a new resource like you guys.
Thank you. Well, I hope that we're having a positive impact on the hobby. That is the goal. What would you tell the fine folks where they can find you? And specifically, I'm curious to know what events we can expect to see Out of Darts represented at this year.
Sure. We go to as many events as we can, but of course there's always limits at the end of the day on budget and time. But we will be sponsoring Maryland Mayhem, End War, and Ragnarok Oktoberfest. I'm for sure attending Maryland Mayhem and Ragnarok Oktoberfest. Can't tell you about End War yet because there's no date. So frequently that lines up with a family reunion and I don't make it. We'll see how it goes this year. We're also sponsoring Team Nebula and Team Red Tide for the competitive season for 2024.
Nice.
And kind of really excited to see more competitive stuff happen and watch that grow like I watched paintball grow.
Fabulous. And of course, if you're not already familiar, outofdarts.com and find Out of Darts on YouTube as well. Hard to imagine there's anyone listening to this podcast that doesn't know that, but I feel like I should say that. It's part of the podcast thing, right? That's how you cast a pod.
Yeah. I mean, if you're listening to the podcast, you're pretty deep in the hobby already, I think.
I think that's fair to say. I'm planning on being at Maryland Mayhem, so it'll be good to see you there again. We're mumbling about trying to get more than just me there, but it might be challenging. Still kind of a question mark from the show. I'm saying.
Okay.
But I'm planning on being there for sure. It's just a nice long drive for me. So I'll see you there, and some of y'all listeners, hopefully I'll see you there too. Don't be a stranger. But for now, I think we casted a pod. thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.